Let's read this news article by it's about Jensen Huang, who he is the Nvidia CEO, and it's 2024, so Nvidia is it's on the news a lot because of it is a chip manufacturer, and I guess it started off making gaming chips, but now or chips that were used in gaming, but now they are using it for AI. And so for generative AI. Now, here, this article is about how, Jensen Huang talks about how, I've cleaned more toilets than all of you combined. Nvidia founder Jensen Huang says he wishes pain and suffering on Stanford students. And let's go through this. So, to me, no task is beneath me because remember, I used to be a dishwasher, and I mean that. And I used to clean toilets. I cleaned a lot of toilets. I've cleaned more toilets than all of you combined. And some of them you just can't unsee. And clearly, I think what Jensen is trying to say, what Huang is trying to say here is that in life, it's not always, you don't always work is work. And perhaps the lesson here is that work is something that it kind of, in some ways, it's not transferable. And what I mean by that is, when you do something, it doesn't necessarily translate into something else, because obviously, but still, at the same time, in some ways, obviously, the dishwashing is not necessarily going to help you with computers, but if what it does do is it instills on you the discipline. So in your mind, perhaps it still it accustoms you to doing things when you don't feel like doing it, or in some case, because when you're in a job, one of the great things about jobs, and this is something that I find myself falling into, is that when you're working a job, you're kind of forced to do something not within your, it's not within your schedule, right? You don't choose the schedule, right? Usually, and you don't just come in whenever. There are set times you come in and out, and there are certain things that you have to do. And there's something about that makes you and me, having worked, in my experience, it makes it so that I am able to, do things and where I wouldn't have done it, and I don't know if, when you're on vacation or when you're on your day off, it's weird because I don't feel like doing anything. But when I'm working, I do it. And not only that, but if I were at work, I would do things that I wouldn't do if I wasn't working. And so the whole dishwashing thing kind of puts into perspective how in life you're going to have to do things, but you have to do things, but sometimes it's just hard to make yourself do it. And I think the whole idea of, Huang is saying here that, when you get a job, that no job should be beneath you, especially, when you're learning, when you are, well, first off, everyone has to start off somewhere, right? So, you need to start somewhere. And then when you do start, that is going to help you become a leader, become whatever it is that you want to be, because that discipline is still going to carry over. And I will say there's just something about working a job that helps you do that. And it's really hard to do, to have the self-discipline to do it on your own. Now, I've worked on projects on my own as well, and I can say it is possible to do that discipline. But, there's something about life that makes it so that, so that you don't quite feel, you don't feel like doing it sometimes unless you push yourself into it. And so Huang kind of is, I feel like when you're, doing kind of a job that is beneath you, or doing a job that you feel like this isn't what a hero should be doing, right? Or this isn't what somebody who is successful should do. And sometimes they're tedious things. Sometimes, even at your most successful, when you are successful, you need to still you need to get yourself used to doing things that are uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, even things that are higher level are still going to be uncomfortable. So that uncomfortable feeling is the same. And when you're washing dishes, you see this mountain of dishes right before you, and you see the toilets that need to be cleaned. Huang talks about the toilets, but essentially there is this feeling, you go through the feeling of, I don't want to do this, and then you start doing it, and then you do it, and then usually at the end you feel pretty good, and your muscles feel great, your mind feels great, and your body feels great too. Like in some ways, not, I don't know if great, but at first, obviously, it's, you might be, it might be discomforting, but over time, you get stronger at it. You get used to it. So let us continue here. So Huang's lighthearted remark elicited laughter from the audience. He continued, I don't know what to tell you. That's life. And so you can't show me a task that's beneath me. And what he means by that, I think, is the idea that when you're doing a job, whatever you're doing, that first of all, there's a certain level of respect, right, that he's giving to people who work, which is something that I try to do, which is that no matter what job a person does, you have to honor that job. You have to be like, you know what, it's hard. When you showing up to work day in and day out, like it's hard work. It doesn't matter what the work is. And I kind of wish that we would appreciate that, in our society, that we would learn to appreciate people. You see people from around the world, there's all kinds of jobs. No matter what the job is, like it's always something. When you see someone working, striving for anything, there's no job that really you should think, obviously, everyone's going to choose different things, right, according to their, what they can do. But you should always respect someone who wakes up in the morning. Like there's always something. We should do everything we can to protect and to, I guess, give encouragement and make sure that everyone is safe when they are sort of working a job, and that people feel like, because really, people make, it's a lot of times, people make the world go round, right? It's a great thing. And going back to what I said before, which is that when we are talking about the idea that, in life we, you have this task. Sometimes you feel like you don't have to learn this, right? Or you don't have to do something. And, it might not be dishwashing. It could be working at retail, or it could be, anything, working at a fast food place, right? It could be anything that, obviously, you're starting off, right? You're starting off, you're usually not going to start at the top, right? So you're going to do something that is kind of at the bottom of the rung, right? Somewhere at the bottom, and whatever it is, you need to be able to see that as a part of your journey, sort of, and that it's not something that is like, oh, well, I can't do this, but really it's an opportunity, because what you're doing now, you're not always going to be here. And so that's tenacity, that same level, that vigor, that if you do this really well, you'll be able to do other things really well too. And so it's that same confidence that it should give you. If you're doing this work, you should get the confidence within you so that you feel like this is something that something that will strengthen you. And whatever goals you have, of course, that's going to depend on your imagination and what you want to do in life. But that, when you're starting off, it starts somewhere. And, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to start somewhere, because I think what Huang is getting at here is that if you don't, if you don't know, if you kind of don't want to do things that are difficult at first, or that feel ancillary, or feel like this has nothing to do with what you actually want to do in life, but if you don't do them, then there's that risk that you will never learn, you will never grow as a person, you'll never deliver. Because I guess in some ways, Huang is kind of saying that you should try to give yourself some kind of discipline, some kind of job where you're doing something that could be uncomfortable or that people don't want to do, but that over time, this is the same skill that you're going to need to be successful. I mean, I'm assuming this is where Huang is going with this. So he continued, I don't know what to tell you, that's life, and so you can't show me a task that's beneath me. Okay, so we read that. And so the idea is that there's no task, there's no job that you should feel like you don't want to do, because sometimes, even when you're doing something that you like, because I've done some computer work and stuff, and sometimes there are aspects of what you do that you just don't like. And so that you kind of have to accept that that feeling within you that, you want to do something, but you don't want to do this one thing that's part of the journey. I think almost every job has something about it that's kind of distasteful and that is not fun to do. And whether it's that or whether it's something that's difficult throughout, you need to be able to kind of, go through this, the path towards your goal, because that's how you do it. And Huang emphasized, so we'll keep reading. Huang emphasizes his willingness to help others by sharing his approach to problem solving. He states that his assistance is not about whether a task is beneath him, but about being of service by demonstrating his reasoning process on various challenges. So, the idea that it's not about, what is it? He states that his assistance is not about whether, emphasizes his willingness to help others by sharing his approach to problem. Okay, so he's just saying this is how he has learned to solve problems. And basically, by demonstrating his reasoning process on various challenges, whether they're ambiguous, incalculable, or seemingly daunting, he empowers others. So essentially, when he is he's basically saying that, when you have different issues, that these things can be solved by being of service, by working, so when you have a challenge that is before you, that, it's similar to how it is when you are working a job. And so that, and he's basically sharing with us kind of, because sometimes, and it's really weird, like I guess the way I would put it is, sometimes when you have, let's say, it's similar to when an athlete, let's say, plays tennis or something, and then that tennis is able to inspire, their writing or the art. And you might think, well, how so? And it's because, when you do tennis, you set up and like, I guess in some ways, when you play tennis, or another example would be, it's similar to playing a sport or doing a business, right? Sometimes you're preparing, and that can be analogous to how you would prepare for a meeting at a job, or teamwork in a team sport could be similar to how you would do teamwork in a job setting. So in some ways, this is how, not only is that the idea of sort of structural similarities between sort of sports or art, or even like vacations, even things that you wouldn't think. But in this case, he's talking about work, which is something that we all do, right? Like we have to do. We have to work. Most of us have to work for a living, right? So that's something directly that can help us. And so Huang is trying to help us, in this case, saying that, that job is actually helping you to become a better person for whatever you want to do next in your life. It's helping you here. And so, and it's also, specifically they talk about here in this paragraph, the problem solving, the idea that, you're solving problems. And just like the idea of your mind will come up with how to, because you're going to come up with issues and problems at the workplace. And those are the same issues that sometimes will come up later on. And sometimes you can't have them without failing. And it's the failure aspect that is the most valuable about a job or about anything. And in many cases, when you make failures at the job, you're going to learn how other people treat you. You're going to learn how other people are. You're going to learn sort of what works and what, and what some of the problems that come up, right? And sometimes you can't learn that without being there and without having those sort of mistakes happen, without having those issues pop up. And so it makes you into someone who can grow. You can grow not only in your so much of what happens is not just intellectual, but it's also how to deal with issues and with other people. And in this case, cleaning toilets is a little more solitary, I guess, but still you're dealing with how do you manage that? How do you deal with that? The problems that come up with that, which every job has. And really about being of service to yours. So being of service means that you need to be willing. So I guess what Huang is saying here is that you're actually helping others by being of service. So you're empowering others when you are of service. So the idea is that the willingness to serve. And that's another aspect of what's being talked about here, which is you are, sometimes in life you need to be in a position where you can serve others and have a willingness to serve others as well and be happy to serve others. And isn't that something that people, generally speaking, when they pay you to do something, or, people want to be with someone that helps them, right? That you're able to offer a service, or in this case, your work, and you're able to do something that keeps the engine moving. And in a very real and tangible way, like sometimes service is all encompassing, so it includes washing toilets sometimes. It includes, even like a leader, sometimes you might not realize it, but leaders are often having to do dirty jobs too. Sometimes they have to, if there's an emergency, they might have to put on, an extra pair of, a different hat. They might have to they might have to take on a different role, or might have to stay up later, or you might have to, different scenarios where that are unexpected. And it's all about service. And really, ultimately, I guess what Huang is saying is in life, the greatest lesson perhaps in, cleaning toilets and everything is that you are doing something of service to others. And so when you are serving, whether you're at a job or whether you're creating, even if you're self-employed, you are serving others with whatever product that you've created. Let's see. Okay, so whether they are... Okay, so now... Huang doesn't hesitate to make bold statements. He made some intriguing remarks about expectations, pain, and sufferings. So now let's talk about the next. Rather than prescribed specific actions, he shared this insight. One of my great advantages is that I have very low expectations. So what does that mean, right? What does it mean to have low expectations? What that means is that when you approach life, you are going to have, if you expect things to be difficult, you will surprise yourself. In some ways, I guess it's like taking the worst case scenario in any situation. If you approach, because when you're doing something like, washing dishes, it's like a disaster, is it not? Right? You walk into the kitchen, it looks like a disaster. When you walk into a dirty toilet, a restroom that's dirty, it's like a disaster. And so in some ways, Huang is saying that when you have very low expectations, that's where the magic can happen. When your expectations are low, you are sort of looking at life sort of in a hard difficulty, basically, in a harder circumstance, and then you're trying to turn. And so when you approach it, I guess it's easier to some extent maybe to turn it into something positive. Like if you're capable of turning bad situations into great outcomes, like that is the most valuable thing. Because a lot of people, they might not approach life that way. And isn't that a great lesson for us, when we are living our lives? If we expect things to just be perfect, then we won't put in the effort. And also, when hard times come before us, we won't know how to handle it. We won't be prepared for that. If you prepare yourself for the difficult circumstances first, or always, or maybe at the beginning, or if you're not afraid of that difficult circumstance, then you will be able to sort of succeed even more. You'll be used to turning sort of lemons into lemonade, or to put it another way, you will be used to doing things that it feels, things that are hard, and you'll be able to transform them into something good, into something that you'll have it in you to, just like I said, where you're used to doing something. When your expectations are low, when you finally do it, it makes it so that you know how to handle difficult issues, right? When you feel that uncomfortableness, and then you're able to perform and maintain a sort of a successful attitude, a successful outcome, if you're able to make from bad situations and turn it into an amazing experience, like you're going to be able to do that for any scenario. And so really it's kind of a lesson saying that it starts right now, that you don't need to wait until later on to become a hero. You can be the hero now with the small problem, that is fixing the toilet or, washing the dishes, right? You can be the hero now. You can be the person that does it now. You could be the one that succeeds now. And so my question or my challenge to you is to approach these things so that you can learn to see things in a way that allows you to grow and to see opportunity in all of the circumstances that you have now, because you can have the great successes can come in those moments where, when you have gotten used to sort of turning the mundane into something successful. And you can do that right now. Like, you can start now. You can become that person today, so that when later on you have bigger and bolder and greater opportunities, you will be prepared, right? You will be you'll be able to do it because you've already been doing it. And that maybe there's another implication here, which is that maybe everything is kind of the same, like the way you succeed in great things is the same way that you would succeed in these smaller things. And so if you can do that, you'll be able to do that, the other, and some people, they think they can separate it, but really the brain perhaps needs that. You need that. You are, I guess what I'm saying is you need to become that person now. And that's going to carry you through the rest of your life. Okay, so Huang highlighted a significant drawback. Or let's just start with this one right here. I'll just read a little bit, maybe not the whole thing, but you're surrounded by other kids that are just incredible. Okay, he's talking about Stanford. And then he says, however, Huang highlighted a significant drawback to this mindset, stating, people with very high expectations have very low resilience, and unfortunately, resilience matters in success. So here is this idea that, when you are, I guess when you're surrounded in an environment where everything is just golden and everything is bigger than life and everything is wondrous, and, that's all, a part of what it means to be successful, but you also are not experiencing the hardship that comes with the lessons that you need to learn, because there are still some hard lessons you need to learn in business, at the workplace, or whatever it is, right? And so the idea is, if you, sometimes, people, you might not, the resilience means the ability to endure something, the ability to suffer, or the ability to go through hardship. And so what this means also is that resilience is important for success, that if you want to succeed, you're going to have that grit in you. And that is something that if you are thinking that, or if you've gotten too used to, the idea that you are successful all the time, but sometimes that failure is also part of the success, so to speak. And I guess maybe we could read the previous paragraph. high expectations because you came from a great school, you were very successful, you were top of your class. Obviously, you were able to pay for tuition, and then you're graduating from one of the finest institutions on the planet. So the idea is that, you have this high success, and you are a success, and sometimes, you feel like you've already won, right? Like imagine if you've been doing well in life. Sometimes, when you're playing games, or you're at home, or you just came from school, or even if you were at a job that perhaps didn't have the difficulty, it wasn't very difficult, wasn't challenging, you might think that, well, geez, I'm great. I've already succeeded. And so, and the issue here is Huang is saying that could be an illusion. Like that could be a bad thing. If you're just winning too much, it could mean that you're not in an environment that's actually creating enough resilience or enough resistance for you, that you're not experiencing the difficulty, or you're not experiencing the challenges that are actually going to help you grow, and that will make you actually a stronger person. So in some ways, he's basically inviting the difficulties to come upon you. He's inviting that so that, hey, you know what? Don't be afraid of the discomfort. And sometimes you're going to have to fail, right? To figure out what is actually sort of, you're going to have to fail, and you're going to have to feel like you are doing something that, you're going to have to lose, because the implication here is that if you're always winning, and even if you are a good student, right? Even if you're in an environment where it's a little too comfortable or whatever, that you still want, that could make it so that you're not prepared when you're actually, and not only that, I feel like Huang is kind of implying here that that you might not even be able to achieve the success if you don't do this. That you could actually hamper yourself, that you could get stuck, you could get stymied into this lower, like you could never, because if you never do something that you're uncomfortable with doing, then you might just always stay doing things that are comfortable. And so you're not going to be, you're not going to be Nvidia, you're not going to be Apple, you're not going to revolutionize anything. Because you've always just stuck to what you've already known and what's comfortable. And the implication being that in order to move beyond, you have to do things like it's required that you go above what you think you want to do, and that you go below what you think are your expectations in some ways, or that you go below, that you have the ability to go from a situation that is very, difficult, and then turning that into something great. But that requires sort of the ability to see that, to recognize, hey, this is hard, but you know what? Let's deal with this. Hey, I know this is a difficult situation, and some people, sometimes you just want to snap your fingers, right? You want to do a knee-jerk reaction. But Huang is saying, well, let's think about this, and let's really solve this. See, so now you're not just like doing things as quick as possible. You're problem solving. Exactly what he talked about before. And the idea is, when you're washing dishes or you're cleaning toilets, it's not usually something that can, you just snap your fingers. Sometimes there's, you have to come up with a plan, sort of. All right, let me gather up my supplies. Let's do this. Let's hold our nose or whatever. And sometimes it can be an arduous task. And in the same way, when you're dealing with, at the workplace, or you're dealing whatever, it doesn't even have to be a workplace. Let's say it's a business. Maybe it's your own small business. Maybe it's maybe you're self-employed. Maybe you are whatever creative or whatever endeavor you have. this idea of being able to, if just because you see something that's difficult or unpalatable, or you don't want to deal with this, doesn't mean that, hey, you know what, I'm just going to avoid doing this. Like, no, that is part of your journey. And that could very well be the breakthrough. That could be the reason why you succeed when others do not. Because, most people, they don't want to do that. And that's kind of what creates value in you and in your product and whatever it is that you are trying to do. The value comes from when you do things that most are unwilling to do. They're not willing to dedicate their lives to that. And what's crazy is that people will recognize that in you. When they see that you just, they'll see the difference at the workplace, but not just that, in life too. They will recognize, they will see that you're doing something and you've attained a skill that most people do not want to. They don't want to, they're not willing to put in the effort to do that. And they weren't willing to because, just like he said, it's beneath them. And yet the thing that's beneath you is exactly what makes sort of a billionaire like Jensen Huang or Bill Gates or, whoever else, whatever other billionaires, right? Jeff Bezos, whatever. That really, a lot of people don't realize, but they actually do put a lot of work into what they do. And part of it is being willing to put in the efforts in the long run. And a lot of it is being able to not to go for the hard things and not be afraid to do that. So, all right, here's the part that I really do like. Huang believes the ability to endure setbacks and stuff is crucial for success. And basically, I don't know how to teach it to you, except that I hope that this difficulty happens to you. And so, in some ways, it's basically, setbacks that, Huang is saying that you kind of need to lose in life. You need to experience a project failure. You need to experience, you need to accidentally say the wrong thing, or, you need to be able to, and that's not to say that you're going to be reckless, but doing it in the right way, which in the right way means it's not that you're purposely being, reckless. I think what Huang is saying is that you're with earnest trying to do the right thing, and inevitably you're going to do things wrong. You're going to do things that you didn't, you're going to do things wrong. You're going to do things that you didn't, that you didn't see sort of, or you're going to do things that, when you're trying to do the right thing, there's a difference between making a mistake in earnestness, so you're where an innocent mistake basically, versus a mistake that's on purpose. Does that make sense? So if you do something without knowing, that's different than making that same mistake on purpose. So a recklessness would be like just not caring. But I'm talking about when you do care and you're just trying to learn, and that's part of the learning process. And really, if you have wise leaders, who are caring for you, whoever, whether at the workplace or wherever, they'll understand that that's part of the process in business, but also in your own personal life. This is something that parents understand, right? They know that, parents know that their offspring are going to be making mistakes. So they know that that's part of the process. And in your case, in your life, a mistake made in earnestness is not the same as a mistake made in recklessness. I guess that's my quote, right? So if you are doing anything in life, you're going to make, you're going to start doing things that you didn't realize. And that's why see, a lot of people, they're afraid of this. Because when you're new at something, you have to, there's no way around that, right? Obviously, if somebody's been doing something for a year or longer, they've already made the mistakes. But, in their eyes, they might hold you to their standards. See what I mean? They have high expectations. They might have high expectations. They might compare themselves to you. They might say, hey, you know what? I've been here. I know all this. And you're new. But, and they might hold you to a high, and in your mind, you might even, perhaps maybe you don't even understand that, hey, wait a minute, you're not on the same, you're not level with them. And even then, like, you don't be afraid of that process, because that beginner's process is part of the journey of learning. And sometimes, as long as you learn as much as you can, and you pay attention, and you improve, you'll be able to succeed, even if other people don't understand, or other people might not recognize, or they might not have the same standards you have for yourself. And so having that low expectation at the beginning and going through that difficulty is what allows you to, that, in other words, that you should be prepared to fail and have those setbacks. And Huang is basically saying, let those setbacks happen to you. Accept them, accept them as part of your job, right? A dishwasher approaches his job. He doesn't come into work saying, I hope I don't have dishes. No, he knows for a fact he's going to have dishes, right? He's going to have a lot of dishes to wash. And as soon as he or she finishes, as soon as a dishwasher finishes whatever dish, whatever they have, it's more dishes that just come in, right? So a dishwasher, so in some ways in life, or on the journey of your life, see it that way too. And perhaps even see the beauty in washing dishes. See the beauty in going through the difficulty that you're going through right now. See that might help. I mean, but the idea is, I don't think Huang really even doesn't really give how to cope with it, as much as saying that just however you cope with it, it doesn't even matter. It seems like Huang doesn't provide a way to cope with this. Huang is just saying, just take on the setbacks and difficulties. Go through it, fail. Go through that failure. And sometimes the failure can be really bitter, can be really hard. And you might be, it might mean a project lost. It might be a product that doesn't go anywhere. It might be a failed, it might be a failed project. It might be a failed product. It might be something that you thought it would work, but for whatever reason it didn't catch on. But nevertheless, there's a lesson to be learned there, and there's something that you can take with you. So he shared that although he grew up in an environment that fostered success, he also faced many challenges. Within his company, he uses the term pain and suffering with glee, seeing such challenges as opportunities to strengthen and refine the character of the organization. So in this case, we see how he's even saying that you should have, difficulties with glee, right? Like with almost as if you should look forward to it. And I mean, that's one way to do it, I guess. Kind of learn to love it, similar to what I just said. And an opportunity to, and in some ways you're going to have to do that. I think when you do something that is anything that's worth doing, it's going to be something that most people don't want to do, which will mean that it's something difficult. It's something that's going to be like arduous. And see that as an opportunity for your mind to learn that. So now all of a sudden those toilets and the dishwashing became analogous to what actually starts to happen on the higher levels, right? On when you're doing computer work or the art or whatever it is. So all of a sudden, these same difficulties, are still going to happen. But how are you going to solve it, right? Are you just going to balk at it? Are you going to shy away from it? Or are you going to, with glee, approach it, right? As it says here. For Huang, true greatness in individuals comes from character, not intelligence, and character is shaped by experiences of adversity. That is very interesting. I never thought of it that way. But let me see if I can break that down. So in some ways, it's not just about intelligence, but who you are as a person, which I think is interesting, because maybe who you are as a person is more important than your intelligence, than even your abilities. And in some ways, your character is who you are, I guess, what your values are. Because that's going to affect what happens. And it's going to shape how everyone sees you and how the product itself could be a reflection of who you are. I think that's interesting. So, a truly great person, it's not just the work that you do, but sort of the philosophy that you adopt that becomes a part of who you are and defines the person that you will be and the products that you make. So in some ways, I like it. I like what Huang is saying. Like, this is something I've never thought about, but really, intelligence is not enough. It's not enough to just be intelligent. And it's not even enough to be a good worker or whatever. Who you are, who you become as a result of all the efforts that you make, the character, the traits that you adopt, and the philosophy that you build upon yourself, that is going to make you, and everyone is going to choose differently, is what I think is interesting, right? So some people might choose to solve some things one way. Someone else might choose to take a different approach. Some people might prefer, some people might succeed. I wouldn't go so far as to say that there's one way to succeed. Some people might succeed by, by coming in and sort of eliminating many things, but then there are others who might see success in, let's say, in putting in the work. Some people might prefer the opposite. Some people might prefer to really hone in and microscopically, try to fix every single thing little by little. Like, it just depends on who you are and how you approach it, and both could work, which is why that's another thing too. It's interesting that the character, a leader comes in many types, right? There's not just one kind of leader usually. And so we all have different intelligences. We all have different abilities to learn. And even, it's weird because just because you know something doesn't mean that, the potential to learn is not there. For most humans are capable of learning quite a bit. And so really I think it's interesting how it doesn't matter what you've learned as much as, your character. So of course, intelligence matters, I think, and it's still something you carry with you. But I feel like, I think Huang is saying basically that there's another element to it that sort of combines all of your different skills together. And that's your character. So, I wish upon you ample doses of difficulty. So that's interesting that this is kind of what Huang, I guess it's interesting how Huang basically says that your character will come from the difficulties that you encounter, or your character will be built on the difficulties, or will come from the difficulties. And I think that's interesting for Huang to say, like, well, if you want to build up your character, that I think it's interesting that in order to build a character, that you are going to, or that difficulty, that doing difficult things is what builds your character, is what allows you to build a philosophy for yourself. And I like that. Like I don't think I've ever thought of it that way. But the idea that your difficult circumstances are going to make they're going to make your life they're going to create who you are. They're going to affect, because how you approach it is going to influence the type of, the way that your mind is going to solve problems. And no matter what, I think we're all going to approach and solve problems differently. But I think that if the one thing I guess that we all have in common would be that we could solve problems in our own way, but we solve them in one way or another, and that and when we resolve it, it's going to, that discovery is going to come from it's going to come from the hard work and from the difficulty itself. So we're all, if you want to learn how to become a successful person, I guess, go through the difficulty, and you're going to find your own version of being successful, and it's going to be unique to you. And anyway, that's what I think, and that's how I interpret it. So thank you all, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day or night, and thanks for joining me.